Pennsylvania gets labeled as the state people drive through to get somewhere else. Rolling farmland, some cities, plenty of historical markers, nothing that exciting, right? Wrong. Turns out Pennsylvania hides some of the weirdest, most unbelievable places in America. We're talking rocks that ring like bells, a town that's been on fire for 60 years, and architectural marvels that look imported from Europe. So here are 15 places you won't believe exist in Pennsylvania. Number 15. Ringing Rocks Park. Upper Black Eddy, Bucks County, hosts one of the strangest geological phenomena in America. Ringing Rocks Park contains a 7-acre boulder field where rocks literally ring like bells when you hit them with a hammer. Not metaphorically, they actually produce clear, bell-like tones that sound like church bells or chimes, depending on which rock you strike and where you hit it. The boulder field sits 10 feet deep in some spots, just boulders stacked on boulders with almost no soil or plant life. About a third of the rocks ring. The others just make a dull thud. And here's the weird part. These are all the same type of rock, diabase, but some ring while others sitting right next to them don't. Scientists have been studying this place since the 1890s, and they still can't fully explain why it happens. In 1965, a geologist from Lafayette College named Richard Fayas took samples back to his lab and discovered the rocks produce tones lower than human ears can hear. The audible sound only happens because these low frequencies interact with each other. Further research in 2008 by Rutgers professors found that ringing rocks are under internal tension, like a guitar string. Non-ringing rocks have no tension. But that doesn't explain why some rocks developed tension and others didn't, or how the boulder field formed on top of a hill instead of at the bottom where boulder fields usually collect. Another mystery: nothing grows in the boulder field. No grass, almost no lichen, barely any insects. Animals avoid it. One researcher noted that birds don't even fly over it. The surface temperature might explain this. Rocks absorb heat and become too hot to sustain most life, but it adds to the eerie quality of the place. The park has been a local curiosity for over a century. In 1890, a physician named John J. Ott gave a musical performance using boulders from a nearby ringing rock field. He arranged about 200 pounds of rocks by tone and played them with a hammer, accompanied by a brass band. The newspaper reported clear, bell-like tones that could be heard above the horns. That might be America's first rock concert, literally. Visitors come with hammers and hop around the boulder field testing rocks. Some sound like bells, others like kettle drums. Some produce multiple tones. Kids love it because they get to hit rocks with hammers and make noise. Adults love it because it genuinely defies easy explanation. Bring your own hammer. The park doesn't provide them. And be careful, the boulders are slippery, and it's easy to drop things between the rocks that you'll never retrieve. Number 14. Centralia. Centralia was a thriving coal mining town of over 1,000 people in 1980. Today, it has 5 residents. What happened? The ground underneath has been on fire since 1962. On May 27, 1962, the town council hired volunteer firefighters to burn trash in a landfill located in an abandoned strip mine pit near the Oddfellows Cemetery. Standard practice back then. The fire was supposed to be controlled, doused with water, and done. Except the fire found a hole leading directly into the labyrinth of abandoned coal mine tunnels beneath the town. Despite repeated attempts to extinguish it, pumping water, covering it with clay, digging trenches, the fire spread through the coal seams. The borough tried everything. They dug a 450-foot-long trench to stop the fire's spread. Didn't work. They pumped millions of gallons of water into the mines. The fire kept growing. By 1979, a gas station owner stuck a dipstick into his underground fuel tank and discovered the gasoline was 172 degrees Fahrenheit. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy fell into a sinkhole that opened suddenly in his backyard, 150 feet deep. The ground was literally collapsing. Congress allocated over $42 million in 1984 for relocations. Most residents accepted buyouts and left. Some refused, arguing the government was using the fire as an excuse to seize valuable mineral rights. The government condemned all properties in 1992 through eminent domain. The Postal Service discontinued Centralia's zip code in 2002. By 2020, only 5 people remained, allowed to stay until they die after a legal settlement in 2013. The fire continues burning today. It covers an 8-mile stretch and reaches depths of 300 feet in places. Experts estimate there's enough coal underground, around 25 million tons, to fuel it for another 250 years. Smoke still seeps from cracks in the ground. Carbon monoxide levels in certain areas remain dangerously high. The ground is unstable enough that sinkholes can open without warning. The abandoned section of Route 61, known as Graffiti Highway, attracted thousands of visitors who covered the buckled pavement with spray-painted art. The property owner buried it under tons of dirt in 2020 to discourage visitors during the pandemic. Most of the town's structures were demolished in the 1980s and 1990s. The Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Ukrainian Catholic Church still stands and holds weekly services. A geological survey confirmed solid rock, not coal, sits beneath it. Centralia inspired the horror video game and film Silent Hill. The eerie fog, abandoned buildings, and sense of impending doom translated directly from Pennsylvania to the screen. There's not much there anymore. It's pretty much just a crossroads, one visitor noted. But the story of a town consumed by fire from beneath remains one of Pennsylvania's most haunting real-life disasters. Number 13, Fallingwater. Frank Lloyd Wright designed hundreds of buildings, but Fallingwater might be his masterpiece. This house doesn't sit near a waterfall. It sits on a waterfall. Built in 1935 as a weekend retreat for the Kaufman family in the Laurel Highlands, Fallingwater cantilevers directly over Bear Run Waterfall. The stream flows beneath the living room. You can hear it constantly. Wright integrated the house so completely with the landscape that it appears to grow from the rocks. The design was revolutionary. Wright sketched the initial concept in less than 3 hours while the Kaufmans were driving to visit him. The house features no walls between the living spaces and the outdoors, just glass and stone blending seamlessly. One of 24 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the United States. It's the only one that's a private residence turned museum. Fallingwater draws over 160,000 visitors annually. The cantilevers have required extensive structural reinforcement over the years. Turns out building a stone house suspended over a waterfall creates engineering challenges. But standing in that living room with water rushing beneath your feet remains one of America's most surreal architectural experiences. Number 12, Eastern State Penitentiary. Philadelphia's Eastern State Penitentiary opened in 1829 as a revolutionary experiment in criminal justice. The idea was to reform prisoners through solitary confinement, giving them time for penitence and reflection. Instead, it drove men insane. This was the world's first penitentiary. The word literally means a place to be penitent. The design influenced over 300 prisons worldwide. Prisoners spent 23 hours a day alone in individual cells. When they left their cells for the 1 hour of exercise, guards placed hoods over their heads so they couldn't see or be seen by other inmates. The prison held notorious criminals, including Al Capone and Willie Sutton. Capone's cell was furnished with rugs, a radio, and comfortable furniture. The mob made sure he lived well, even behind bars. The prison operated until 1971, then sat abandoned for 20 years. Today, it's a museum, but much of the facility remains in a state of preserved ruin. Paint peels from walls, cell doors hang open, vegetation grows through cracks in the floor. Walking the cell blocks feels post-apocalyptic. The Halloween haunted house they run here is genuinely terrifying because half the building doesn't need any decoration. It's already nightmare fuel. Number 11, Mütter Museum. The Mütter Museum in Philadelphia is not for the squeamish. This medical history museum contains over 25,000 specimens, including human skulls, preserved organs, skeletons, and medical oddities collected since the 1850s by the College of Physicians of Philadelphia. The museum displays the conjoined liver of Chang and Bunker, the original Siamese twins who were born in Siam, now Thailand, in 1811. They toured with P.T. Barnum, married sisters, fathered 21 children between them, and lived connected at the chest for 63 years. When one died, the other died hours later. Their liver, still connected, is preserved in a jar. There's a wall of 139 human skulls arranged floor to ceiling, each showing a different medical condition or anatomical variation. You can see a piece of John Wilkes Booth's thorax, removed during his autopsy after he was shot in a Virginia tobacco barn in 1865. The museum houses the tallest skeleton in North America, a man who stood 7 feet 6 inches tall due to a pituitary tumor. It also displays the skeleton of a woman who was just 3 feet 6 inches tall, placed nearby for comparison. The most famous exhibit might be sections of Albert Einstein's brain, sliced and mounted on 46 microscope slides. Einstein died in 1955 at Princeton Hospital. The pathologist performing the autopsy removed Einstein's brain without family permission, claiming he wanted to study it. He kept it for decades, occasionally cutting off slices to send to researchers. The Mütter Museum acquired these slides in 2011. The soap lady is equally unsettling. A woman whose body turned to a soap-like substance called adipocere after burial in soil with particular chemical properties. Her corpse was exhumed in Philadelphia in 1875, and she's been on display ever since, her face and body frozen in a waxy preservation that looks almost alive under certain lights. The collection includes a growth removed from President Grover Cleveland's mouth, Eng Bunker's bladder stones, and tissue from the body of John Wilkes Booth. There's the Chevalier Jackson Foreign Body Collection, over 2,000 objects that people swallowed or inhaled, all removed by Dr. Jackson during his career. Pins, buttons, bones, a toy battleship, tiny whistles, and things you hope never to accidentally inhale. This museum makes you grateful for modern medicine, one visitor said, and also gives you nightmares. The Mütter Museum proves that history of medicine is far stranger and more disturbing than any horror movie. It's simultaneously educational, historical, and deeply unsettling, exactly what a good medical museum should be. Number 10. Hershey Park. Milton Hershey built more than a chocolate company. He built an entire town around it. Hershey, Pennsylvania exists because one man decided his chocolate factory workers deserved a nice place to live. Hershey founded the town in 1903, providing affordable housing, good schools, parks, and eventually an amusement park for residents and visitors. The streetlights along Chocolate Avenue are shaped like Hershey's Kisses. The street names include Chocolate Avenue and Cocoa Avenue. You can smell chocolate in the air, depending on what the factory is producing that day. Hershey Park started in 1906 as a leisure park for employees. Today, it's a full-scale amusement park with 15 roller coasters. The original carousel from 1919 still operates. But what makes Hershey unbelievable isn't the park itself. It's that an entire functioning town was built as a utopian experiment by a chocolate manufacturer. The Hershey Industrial School, now the Milton Hershey School, was founded by Milton and his wife Catherine in 1909 to provide education and housing for orphaned boys. Today, it serves over 2,000 students and holds assets worth billions, all funded by the Hershey Company. One man's chocolate empire built an entire community that thrives a century later. Number 9. Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe looks like it belongs in the Swiss Alps, not Carbon County, Pennsylvania. This Victorian town, wedged into the Lehigh Gorge, wasn't always called Jim Thorpe. It was originally two towns, Mauch Chunk and East Mauch Chunk, that merged and rebranded in one of America's strangest civic deals. In 1953, the towns were struggling economically after the coal industry declined. Jim Thorpe, The legendary Olympic athlete who won gold medals in the 1912 Stockholm Olympics had died in 1953, and his widow Patricia was fighting with Oklahoma officials about where to bury him. The state wouldn't provide funds for a proper memorial. Mach Chunk made an audacious offer. "We'll build a memorial and become the final resting place for Jim Thorpe if you let us rename the town after him. We'll even pay for the funeral and monument." The deal was struck. Jim Thorpe is buried in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, a place he never visited while alive. The town renamed itself and built a monument. Patricia Thorpe got a proper burial place for her husband. Oklahoma got nothing. Some of Jim Thorpe's relatives later sued to have his remains returned to Oklahoma. In 2013, a federal judge ruled in favor of the town. Jim Thorpe stays in Jim Thorpe, whether he would have wanted it or not. The town itself is gorgeous. Brick buildings climb steep hillsides. Church steeples pierce the skyline, and the Lehigh River runs through the gorge below. The architecture is unusually well preserved because when the coal industry collapsed, the town was too poor to tear down old buildings and modernize. Poverty preserved it. By the 1970s, artists and tourists started discovering Jim Thorpe, and the town reinvented itself as a destination for antiques, galleries, and outdoor recreation. Whitewater rafting on the Lehigh River draws thousands of visitors annually. The Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway offers train rides through the valley. Downtown has dozens of Victorian-era buildings converted into shops, restaurants, and bed and breakfasts. The town looks the same as it did in 1890, just cleaned up and repurposed. The old jail museum contains one of Pennsylvania's most famous ghost stories. Cell 17 has a handprint on the wall. The story goes that a prisoner named Alexander Campbell, convicted of murder in 1877, slapped his hand on the wall and declared his handprint would remain forever as proof of his innocence. They've tried painting over it, washing it, even removing the plaster. The handprint keeps coming back. Scientific explanation says it's probably water damage and the power of suggestion, but tour guides swear they've watched fresh paint applied over the spot, only to see the handprint reappear within weeks. Probably just water damage and pareidolia, but it makes for a good story and keeps tourists coming. Number 8. Kinzua Bridge. The Kinzua Bridge was completed in 1882 as the tallest and longest railroad bridge in the world. 2,053 feet long and 301 feet high. Engineering marvel of its era. Trains hauled coal and timber across this massive viaduct for decades, crossing the valley in minutes instead of hours. The bridge was reinforced in 1900 to handle heavier trains, replacing iron with steel. It operated until 1959, then sat unused. In the 1980s, the State Park Service considered restoring it as a tourist attraction, creating a walkway so visitors could cross the entire length. Then, on July 21st, 2003, an F1 tornado ripped through the valley. The bridge stood for 120 years against everything Pennsylvania weather threw at it. The tornado destroyed it in 60 seconds. 11 of the 20 towers collapsed, sending twisted steel and concrete tumbling into the valley. Instead of rebuilding or removing the wreckage, Kinzua Bridge State Park turned it into a monument. They stabilized 6 towers on one end and built an observation deck at the edge where the bridge now ends. You can walk out over the valley and look down at the twisted wreckage 300 feet below, then turn around and face the forest where the rest of the bridge used to span. It's Pennsylvania's most dramatic example of nature-humbling human engineering. Number 7. Philadelphia's Magic Gardens. Isaiah Zager started decorating South Street in Philadelphia with mosaics in 1968. Over the next few decades, he covered walls, sidewalks, storefronts, anywhere he could reach, with intricate mosaics made from tiles, bottles, bicycle wheels, and found objects. In 1994, Zagar transformed a vacant lot at 1020 South Street into an immersive art installation. Philadelphia's Magic Gardens grew into a labyrinth of mosaic-covered walls, grottos, sculptures, and pathways covering half a block. Every surface explodes with color. Broken tiles arranged in swirling patterns, bottles embedded in concrete catching light, mirrors reflecting endlessly. The installation was almost demolished in 2002 when the building owner wanted to sell the property. The community rallied, formed a nonprofit, and purchased the building. Philadelphia's Magic Gardens opened as a museum in 2004. Zagar continued working on it for years, and his mosaic murals now cover 50,000 square feet of Philadelphia. Walking through feels like entering someone's fever dream. The mosaics incorporate everything: mirrors, Mexican tiles, folk art, wheels, bottles, all cemented together and arranged into abstract patterns. "There's no planning," Zagar explained in an interview. "I work from my gut." The museum counts as one of Philadelphia's most unusual attractions, proof that one artist's decades-long obsession can transform a city block into something completely unlike anywhere else in America. Number 6. Laurel Caverns. Laurel Caverns near Uniontown is the largest cave in Pennsylvania, over 3 miles of passages. But what makes it unbelievable is what you can do inside it: spelunking, rappelling, and even cave golfing. Most show caves offer paved paths and handrails. Laurel Caverns does have a standard tour, but they also offer adventure caving, where you squeeze through tight passages, climb over boulders, and explore sections most visitors never see. The temperature stays at 52 degrees year-round, regardless of season. The cave was formed millions of years ago as underground streams carved passages through limestone. The main chamber reaches 50 feet high in places. Stalactites and stalagmites fill some areas, though not as extensively as other caves, because Pennsylvania's limestone doesn't have the right mineral content for heavy formations. In the 1970s, the cave owners installed a 9-hole miniature golf course inside the cave. Yes, miniature golf. Underground, in the dark, with glow-in-the-dark balls. It's exactly as weird as it sounds. They also host occasional concerts in the large chamber. The natural acoustics apparently work well for music, assuming you don't mind performing in a cave. Laurel Caverns proves that Pennsylvania's attractions embrace their own strangeness. Why have a normal cave tour when you can add underground spelunking and subterranean golf? Number 5. Fonthill Castle. Henry Chapman Mercer built 3 concrete castles in Doylestown between 1908 and 1912. Not castles in the metaphorical sense. Actual castles with turrets, secret passages, and 44 rooms. And he built them entirely from poured concrete. Mercer was an archaeologist, anthropologist, and tilemaker obsessed with preserving traditional crafts. He feared industrialization was destroying artisan traditions. His solution was to build a tile factory and surround himself with examples of human craftsmanship from around the world. Fonthill Castle, his personal residence, looks like something imported from medieval Europe, but it's reinforced concrete formed in wooden molds. Mercer designed it room by room as he built it, with no overall plan. The result is an architectural maze, staircases that lead nowhere, rooms at odd angles, ceilings of different heights, over 200 windows, no two alike, secret doors, enclosed spaces that feel like crypts. Every surface displays tiles. Mercer's own Moravian tiles, Islamic tiles, Mexican tiles, medieval tiles. The collection includes over 6,000 tiles and prints. Mercer lived alone in this castle with his collection, refusing to marry because he thought relationships interfered with work. Tours of Fonthill feel like exploring an eccentric genius's mind made physical. The castle preserved Mercer's collections intact. You're looking at exactly what he surrounded himself with over a century ago. One visitor described it as, "What would happen if Willy Wonka became an archaeologist instead of a candy maker?" Number 4, the Reading Pagoda. Driving through Reading, Pennsylvania, you look up at Mount Penn and see a 7-story Japanese pagoda overlooking the city. You're not hallucinating. There's actually a pagoda on the mountain. The Reading Pagoda was built in 1908 by businessman William Whitman Sr. As part of a resort hotel, he planned to develop on Mount Penn. He designed it to look authentically Japanese. Curved roofs, red paint, traditional architectural details. The project failed almost immediately. The hotel was never built. The pagoda stood alone on the mountain. In 1911, the city of Reading purchased it for $1. The pagoda became a tourist attraction and observation deck. On clear days, you can see 30 miles in every direction from the top floor. The first floor housed a restaurant briefly in the 1970s. The pagoda is 90 feet tall with 7 levels. The design is remarkably accurate to traditional Japanese architecture despite being built by Americans in rural Pennsylvania with no Japanese builders involved. Whitman studied photographs and plans of Japanese temples and somehow pulled it off. Today, the Reading Pagoda remains one of Pennsylvania's most bizarrely out-of-place structures. Why is there a Japanese pagoda in Reading? Because a businessman in 1908 had money and strange ideas. The fact that Reading kept it and maintains it makes the story even better. Number 3. Gravity Hill. In Bedford County, there's a spot where your car appears to roll uphill. Gravity Hill is one of those places that shouldn't exist according to physics, but you can drive there and experience it yourself. Park your car at the bottom of Gravity Hill, put it in neutral, and watch it roll backward, uphill. Your eyes and inner ear insist you're going up. Your car disagrees with gravity. Objects that should roll downhill appear to roll uphill instead. The explanation is simple. It's an optical illusion. The surrounding landscape creates a false horizon, making a slight downhill slope appear to be uphill. Your brain trusts what it sees over what's actually happening. The effect is so convincing that people have visited Gravity Hill since the 1930s just to experience the weirdness. Multiple Gravity Hills exist around the United States, but Pennsylvania's is among the most dramatic. The illusion works so well that even after understanding it's not real, your brain refuses to accept it. "I know it's an illusion," one visitor said. "My car still appears to be rolling uphill. My eyes and physics are having a disagreement." Bedford County markets Gravity Hill as a tourist attraction. They've placed signs directing visitors to the exact spot. Hundreds of people every year park their cars and watch them apparently defy gravity, then drive away with their understanding of reality slightly shaken. Number 2. Columcille Megalith Park. Hidden in the Bangor Woods sits a stone circle that looks like it was transported from ancient Ireland. Columcille Megalith Park is a modern recreation of Celtic stone structures built by William Cohea Jr. starting in 1975. Cohea was a Catholic who studied Celtic spirituality and decided Pennsylvania needed a sacred stone circle. He purchased land in the Appalachian foothills and spent years hauling massive stones from local quarries, positioning them to create standing stones, burial cairns, stone chambers, and monuments scattered across 30 acres. The main stone circle, called St. Patrick's Gateway, contains stones weighing several tons arranged in a pattern inspired by Irish megalithic sites. A stone chamber designed like an ancient passage tomb sits partially underground. Walking paths connect stone structures through the forest, creating a pilgrimage route. The park operates as a non-profit retreat center. You can visit during the day, walk the paths, meditate near the stones, or attend seasonal celebrations. The summer solstice ceremony draws practitioners of various spiritual traditions who gather in the stone circle to mark the longest day of the year. Columcille represents something rare, a successful modern attempt to create sacred space using ancient techniques. Whether you approach it as spiritual experience or unusual sculpture park, finding a Celtic stone circle in rural Pennsylvania remains genuinely surprising. Number 1. The abandoned Pennsylvania Turnpike. In 1940, the Pennsylvania Turnpike opened as America's first superhighway, 4 lanes, limited access, the future of automotive travel. But the original route included 13 miles with 2 tunnels that created bottlenecks. Traffic backed up for hours. In 1968, the state rerouted traffic over the mountain instead of through it, abandoning the old section. For over 50 years, this 13-mile stretch of highway and its 2 tunnels have sat empty. The abandoned Pennsylvania Turnpike is now the longest abandoned stretch of highway in America. You can bike it, walk it, or just drive to one of the access points and stare into the pitch-black tunnels. The Rays Hill Tunnel and Sidling Hill Tunnel both stretch over a mile long. Walking through them in complete darkness feels post-apocalyptic. A perfectly preserved roadway with faded lane markers, old lighting fixtures hanging from the ceiling, and absolute silence. The temperature drops noticeably inside the tunnels. Your footsteps echo. Nature is slowly reclaiming the surface sections. Grass grows through cracks in the asphalt. Trees encroach from both sides. But the road remains clearly visible. White and yellow lines still mark lanes on a highway that hasn't carried traffic in over 50 years. The state officially closed the abandoned turnpike to visitors in 2009, but the no trespassing signs haven't stopped people from exploring. Some advocate for turning it into an official Rails to Trails project. For now, it exists in legal limbo. Not quite open, not quite closed, gradually decaying while remaining one of Pennsylvania's most surreal, forgotten places. It's like someone pressed pause on 1968, one visitor described it. Pennsylvania turned out to be a lot weirder than anyone expected. From underground fires to ringing rocks, from fake Japanese pagodas to Celtic stone circles, this state contains places that shouldn't exist, but somehow do. And these are just 15 of them. Pennsylvania hides dozens more strange attractions scattered across 46,000 square miles. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more content about places that make you question reality. Now go visit some of these before they disappear. Or in Centralia's case, before they finish burning in another 250 years.